I just discovered the hidden location of the last road poneglyph, and it all goes back to Joy Boy and red-haired Shanks. So stay till the end of this video to see what Luffy must do in order to get to Laugh Tale, find the One Piece, and finally become Pirate King. Oda gave us the biggest and most important lore drop in all of One Piece, and it was Gear 5. It's only been half a year, yet the transformation has truly changed the entire shape and structure of One Piece. However, with its introduction, we see the many questions that come with it. Gear 5 itself is an insane mystery, and had us completely changing our entire perception of the story. Hell, Oda even lied to us that Luffy was a rubber man, which we thought was true since day one. With that being said, it's very interesting to see the amount of freedom Oda has while using Luffy's new transformation. See what I did there? But obviously there's still so many mysteries in the One Piece story that haven't been solved, and funnily enough, Gear 5 is the answer, but not in the way you think. Now, this idea came to me while I was streaming on One Piece University, and I mean that quite literally. One of our main active viewers, Monkey D. Nico, mentioned the abnormality of how similar each of the islands with a road poneglyph was to the Gear 5 transformation specifically. Now, let me explain. There's two main connections with each island that has a road poneglyph, and both connections are quite essential. One of those connections directly going to Gear 5, or Sun God Nika, and the other connection being directly with Joy Boy, and how Joy Boy has impacted that specific island. We'll start off with Fishman Island and the steroids we saw Hody Jones using to boost himself in order to, and let's be honest here, even stand a chance against Luffy. But the interesting thing is the side effects that happened to Hody Jones after its immense use. Sure, it brought him great power and made him look all white with white hair, but he permanently grew old and was stuck as an old man. At first, while reading or watching Fishman Island, it seems like just a funny side effect that helps Hody Jones realize that drug abuse is bad and that no one should abuse drugs. But when you look back to the present and see Luffy's current Gear 5 transformation, the whole situation has a different feel to it. Luffy also grows in age when he runs out of stamina to keep his Gear 5 form, but it's only temporary rather than the permanent effects the energy steroids had on Hody. Now, this detail has been noticed by the community, and that's good because it only builds up from here. Notice that out of all the treasure King Neptune had in Fishman Island, the one item that stands out and is known as the quote-unquote national treasure of the island is the Tamate box. Now, a simple connection can be made, but I feel that these pills were made for the sole purpose to mimic the transformation of Sun God Nika. Also, very fishy that the first mentioning of Sun God Nika is with Jinbei versus Who's Who, and it seems that Jinbei knows a lot more than he's letting on, almost as if there is much more history of Sun God Nika and Fishman in general. Now, moving on to Joy Boy, we all know that he's connected to Fishman Island because of the promise he made to the original Poseidon. Not just that, but he made his apology into a poneglyph and kept it at Fishman Island. With that small yet very important promise that couldn't be kept, we have the two connections to Fishman Island, and thus the location of the first road poneglyph, which has now been taken away to an unknown location, but we know that it has something to do with Whitebeard because he is the next person who was able to take over Fishman Island as his territory right after Roger discovered the poneglyph's existence. Next, we move on to another island that both Sun God Nika and Joy Boy are connected to, and that's 𝙲. We obviously know how 𝙲 is connected to Joy Boy, and that's because of Zunisha, one of Joy Boy's oldest friends who was a figure in the Void Century and committed some sort of crime which led to its 800-year ongoing punishment to walk around the world. Now, as we get to the climax of the 𝙲 arc, we understand that there is a road poneglyph on Zunisha that has been guarded by the Minks for centuries. We also know of their deep connection with the Kozuki clan of Wano, who were the creators of the poneglyphs in the first place. Now, moving to the Sun God Nika connections, it seems quite obvious. The Minks undergo a specific transformation while looking at a full moon, which is known as Sulong. Now, given the fact that when we first saw it in Whole Cake Island with Carrot, we all thought to ourselves, wow, it was just a very badass and super cool transformation, but when you look back to the present and look at Gear 5, you can truly understand and see the similarities. Both white, majestic transformations with red eyes, and are reliant to some extent to celestial bodies, with Sulong being tied to the moon and the Gear 5 transformation being tied to the sun as the sun god. And thus, we have locked the next road poneglyph's location in 𝙲. Alright, now we move to the most lore heavy island when it comes to Sun God Nika and Joy Boy, and that's none other than Wano. Now when it comes to Joy Boy, there are so many connections that you can see with the island of Wano. For starters, we have the flashback of Odin where we finally see Roger going through his entire journey to becoming Pirate King. We then see all the pirates who are seen as a huge threat to the world government government, and they're all passing through Wano, as told to us by Sengoku. We have probably the most menacing villain yet in Kaido, whose obsession is to die a grand death like Roger, Oden, and Whitebeard. Now, to focus on this idea of Kaido wanting a grand death, there's a lot more behind it than what meets the eye, because Kaido himself has a lot more knowledge about the world than what we give him credit for, and that includes Joy Boy. We know that Kaido knows of Joy Boy's existence, and that he stayed in Wano for a very specific reason. He even gave us the very telling information saying that Luffy couldn't be Joy Boy either, implying that someone else tried, most likely being Oden. Now, let's do a tiny bit of math here. We've got a prophecy from Oden and Toki, who know of the whole truth of the world, saying that in 20 years Wano will be saved. We've got Kaido wanting someone to be Joy Boy, and we've also got Kaido staying in Wano for a specific purpose, on purpose, and if we pretty much add that all up, it leads to one major possibility, and that is the true meaning of Joy Boy's return. Kaido's obsession with death was so great that with all the knowledge he had of the world, he thought that the only way his death could be even more grand than Oden's, Whitebeard's, or even Roger's was to be killed by the most powerful figure in history, and that's Joy Boy. We even then flash to the fight between Luffy and Kaido, and as Luffy revives himself into Gear 5, we see 𝙬𝚙𝚙𝚅 talking about the return of Joy Boy, and how it's been 800 years since he's heard the drums of liberation. We then see the most epic fight between Luffy and Kaido, and by the end of the fight, we see Kaido's wishes being fulfilled, but to a certain extent. As Oda said himself, in order for Luffy to defeat his opponents, he has to crush their dreams. In this case, Kaido wanted to die a very grand death, with the whole world knowing how he went out, and he knew that because he was so strong, only one person could accomplish that feat, and that was Joy Boy. Luffy, however, granted Kaido's wish of being killed by Joy Boy, but by punching Kaido straight into lava, it made his death just a rumor, and not as grand as Kaido dreamt it to be. But aside from all that, the main thing that's important here, with all this lore of Luffy beating Kaido, is that somehow the original Joy Boy knew this would happen. He knew that someone would come to Wano to liberate it after 800 years, and because of this, left a red poneglyph there to guide to 𝙬𝚘𝚡. Alright, now that was a lot of Joy Boy stuff for Wano, I know, but let's move to the other side of the story with these red poneglyphs, and that's Wano's connection with Sun God Nika. Now, I will admit at first, it was difficult to find the connection between Sun God Nika and Wano, other than the fact that there is a lot of moon symbolism in Wano, and also the prophecy of the dawn that Toki refers to in the arc, and also Hiyori being the moon princess. However, after rereading the Onigashima raid, I noticed that there is something very strange, but yet it was right in front of my face the whole time, and that's Yamato's devil fruit. Now, it's really easy. All I'm gonna do is take Yamato's devil fruit design and put it side by side with the design of Gear 5, and I want you to see the amount of similarities it has with one another. Not to mention, Yamato's devil fruit is to specifically be the guardian of Wano, and to me, it's very simple what the guardian of Wano has to be doing until Joy Boy returns. That's protecting Wano, and the red poneglyph it contains, which, funnily enough, was being done for Yamato by Wano's biggest obstacle, being Kaido. With this all being said, we now can understand the true meaning and location of the third road poneglyph. Well, I'm pretty sure that by now, you've probably understood this pattern that we are seeing when it comes to the locations of the red poneglyphs, and why they're being placed at certain islands, but I'm pretty sure there's still some doubts. Well, Prince, what about Big Mom's poneglyph? Where did that one come from? There's no connection to Joy Boy or Sun God Nika to Toto Land, so how would you know where it comes from? And you guys are right, we can't infer connections to Joy Boy or Sun God Nika from Toto Land, because there isn't any. But the original location of the red poneglyph definitely does have a connection to both, and the original island for the last red poneglyph is Elbaf. Yes, I did say Elbaf, but the reasoning behind it is a bit different. There's a reason why Big Mom has so much beef with the Giants, and her terrorizing Elbaf at a young age isn't the only reason. The main reason is because she stole their red poneglyph, and in order to regain their favor, there was only one thing she could do. That's getting her daughter married to Prince Loki, in order to heal all ties between her and the Giants. Now, in terms of Elbaf, there are connections to both Joy Boy and Sun God Nika, believe it or not, and although they are small, the ideas themselves are very telling for what is to come in the future. For Joy Boy, we come to the ginormous straw hat in Marijua, which many speculate to be the original Joy Boy's hat, and how the original Joy Boy could have been a giant. Another small, yet important, piece of evidence is a member of the D clan, being Jaguar D Saul, and with recent events showing that he is still very much alive and currently at the Elbaf archives right now, it is important that a member of the D clan is a giant. Now, moving on to the connections with Sun God Nika, it's almost impossible to figure out, since we haven't seen any transformations from giants yet that could possibly mirror Gear 5, or anything at all in fact. But during Big Mom's flashback, we do see something very important that gives us more than enough, and that's the idea of the giants in Elbaf worshipping the sun. In Elbaf, they have a customary tradition of fasting during the winter solstice festival for 12 days in order to celebrate the death and rebirth of the sun. Obviously, we know that didn't go well for Big Mom, as she ended up destroying an entire Elbaf village and created chaos. But when Mother Caramel stepped up and created a homie named Pandora in order to control the massive fire, she said it was the work of the sun god that was able to calm down the disaster that plagued the village. Now, I know what you must be thinking. Prince, that still doesn't explain where to find the last red poneglyph. How in the world could it still be at Elbaf if Big Mom already took it? Again, yes, that is true, but this is where the man with all the answers comes into play, and that is none other than Shanks. Shanks, having protected the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates, was able to take the road poneglyph from Fishman Island and return it back to Elbaf, as many speculate that Elbaf is Shanks' territory, mainly because of the resemblance between Norse mythology and Shanks' crew, and Shanks himself resembling the Norse god Tyr. But by bringing back the road poneglyph to Elbaf, Shanks is able to restore what was lost and bring balance to those in search of the One Piece, including our rubber god Luffy. And this is where the theory gets extremely interesting. There is a reason why every single island that has a huge history with Joy Boy and a connection to sun god Nika has a red poneglyph there, and it's because it was meant to be found by sun god Nika. Luffy himself is the key to finding all 4 red poneglyphs, and his devil fruit will be the reason he is able to move forward in this journey. Now, don't get me wrong, Luffy's devil fruit isn't just a damn compass that takes him to the poneglyph anytime he feels like it. In order to understand the true knowledge of sun god Nika and its influence through the various different islands Luffy has visited, Luffy needs to awaken his devil fruit and reach his quote-unquote peak. And this itself is one of the hardest things to do in the One Piece world, since even the Gorosei themselves have said that it hasn't awakened in centuries. And this is the reason why Oda has alluded to the fact that Wano is the most important island when it comes to finding the One Piece. Because in order to understand where all 4 of the red poneglyphs are, we needed to see the sun god Nika transformation, which the Gorosei didn't even want printed on a bounty poster. Hell, some of us even caught on to the fact that Big Mom was saying that part of the One Piece was in Wano when she was about to explode, and she was right. This is where things get even crazier. In order to understand how to find the One Piece, you need to understand the ideologies of every single island that has a road poneglyph, and not just take the road poneglyph and translate it for yourself. Have you guys ever wondered why the road poneglyphs never stored any information about the Void Century or explained more about the world like regular poneglyphs did, and why they just have coordinates for a specific location? I mean, the point of the poneglyphs was to guide everyone in the present about the Void Century, and evidently enough, you would want to put as much information as possible when it comes to any poneglyph, right? Well, see, that's the very interesting and key thing. The history and the ideologies of the island that the red poneglyph is on is the information of the red poneglyph. If you think about it, where in the world have we learned most about Joy Boy, the Void Century, or sun god Nika? Let's start on Fishman Island, learning about the history of the Fishman slaves, inequality, and the tyranny of the celestial dragons. Let's move to Zou to learn about the existence of red poneglyphs in the first place, and the deep connection between the Kozuki clan and the Minks, and how poneglyphs were even made in the first place. We then move to Wano, and obviously we learned so much from Wano's history and how it led to it finally being liberated by sun god Nika himself. Now, funnily enough, we only have Elbaf left remaining, and the 2 most arguably knowledgeable people about the Void Century, being Jaguar D. Sol and Dr. Vegapunk, are tied to Elbaf. And guess who's letting Vegapunk onto his ship? That's right, it's Monkey D. Luffy. With all of the past closing in on Elbaf, we can definitely expect to learn more about the One Piece and the mystery of the Void Century by learning about Elbaf's culture and its history. With Shanks being at Elbaf, he'll be able to guide Luffy into understanding not only Elbaf's history, but also his own nature with sun god Nika. I mean, we all know that Shanks clearly knows something about Luffy's Gear 5 transformation, from him sacrificing his entire arm just to save Luffy, to saving him at the Paramount War, and setting the path for Luffy to become king of the pirates. He even says it himself that it's time to get the One Piece, but it's not him getting it, it's Luffy. If you truly look look back at Roger's journey as well, you begin to understand why the road to finding the One Piece is so difficult. With all the obstacles in the journey, the true message is finding the one person who is capable of uniting people together, who is able to understand true freedom and is strong enough to withstand the adversities that come along the way. This is why we have the road poneglyphs in different locations that don't see eye to eye with the current corrupt regime, and how the one who can find them all would have the Nika fruit drawn to them because of their will for freedom. Yet they would have to be strong enough to awaken the devil fruit, which is a feat no one in history has achieved. So far, Luffy has ticked all the boxes and he'll be able to achieve what Roger couldn't. We knew that Roger didn't have a devil fruit and that once he found the One Piece, he realized he was too early, and that's why he started to laugh as much as he did. It was a mistake and he got there by accident. And funnily enough, Luffy's journey so far getting each road poneglyph was an accident as well, and will probably continue to be one. But rest assured, his final journey to Laugh Tale and him discovering the One Piece is the one thing that is destined in his legacy as the most free pirate in history.